Hi there. Welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show. Hey there, leader. Welcome to Conversations for Leaders and Teams. I'm Dr. Kelly Whelan, and today we have Annette Bechtold, one of the BelemLeaders coaches, with us today to talk with us about important areas of leader and teamship. And so with that, come on in, Annette. Where no one's going to come on. So today, anyway, it's you and me. It's you and what we've heard in the marketplace, what we ourselves are experiencing. But there's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, there's a ton going on with the workforce. That's what I think is interesting. There's a ton going on with just change. People don't want to come back. And employers are not, how willing are they to really change everything that they do to work around that? Or can they even, can they accommodate that in their business model? And if they can't, they're going to be missing out on talent.
Right.
There's such a talent shortage. And it's not that there's a shortage of people. There's a shortage of people willing to work in the box that a particular employer is giving them. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you say that, because that now has become the box, where it wasn't necessarily the box before. It's now the box.
We have a new box.
We have a new box. Yeah.
We have a brand new box, and all the candidates are expecting the employers to have that box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What an interesting shift.
Amazing shift.
Yeah. And that shift happened because of the pandemic, because people now have a different view of what work looks like for them personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you see it maybe even before? Did you see people?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that it was quietly coming, and that it was just exacerbated and accelerated by the pandemic. So the whole, if you sort of look generationally, and there's been so much out there about millennials, they were sort of like this stepping stone, but now you look at Gen Z, and what their expectations are just for life in general. What is a good life? I think it's completely different. It's completely different, certainly, than baby boomers, right? Where it's okay, trudge along and pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just
baby boomers.
Whatever. Me too. So, but it's a totally different mindset about what is a fulfilling life and where am I going to spend my sand? Like, I only have so much of it. What am I going to do with it? And they just seem to be more cognizant or more unwilling to just compromise that. Yeah. To say, okay, well, I'll just suck it up and do whatever to get ahead. They're like, why am I waiting? No, this is what good life equals to me. And so that's what I'm going to look for. That's a way different thought process.
Yeah. Yes. Especially if they're being led by the baby boomers. Right.
Well, and this is so foreign. Like, I don't know about you, but a lot of I coach a lot of middle managers. So they're managing the frontline folks, right? In customer service and professional kind of white collar industries. And they absolutely do not understand their workforce, like the thought process, like how can you just decide, like you have customers that you have to take care of. How can you just decide, like, I'm not going to show up today? Like, and there's not really good reason. Like, it's not like you're sick or your kids are sick, or it's just, I'm not coming today. Like, what is that about? Where the person though is like, for my overall well-being, I need to take this time. I need space, right? To be my best. Those two things, I mean, that never existed in the workplace, because it really, at the end of the day, it wasn't about the well-being of the employee. It was about getting
right. I mean, that would be unheard of to even have those conversations.
Yeah.
Do that. You don't bring in even, the outside in. You don't bring in your family in, how you're feeling. There's none of that. You were there just to do the job that you were hired to do, and nobody wanted to hear anything else.
That's such a good point, Kelly. It is right. Like that was almost taboo, right? To talk about
Oh my God.
and to let somebody into the personal in the workplace, into the personal side, especially your boss, into the personal side of your life, or to have any glimpse in there. And now it's like, I was just talking to a manager. We were doing a coaching session the other day, and she said to me, I feel like I'm like the mother, the counselor, like I have all these hats I have to wear, and not just be the boss anymore. Right.
Yeah. But that's how engagement happens though too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because if people can't feel that they can bring their authentic self into the workplace, then they're not going to be engaged. And we know what the research says about that.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. That's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad change. Yeah. Right. How many people were compromised, or spent 40 years doing something they hated, that provided them no joy whatsoever, but felt compelled or obligated to do it. Right. That's not good. That's not a great life either.
Oh my gosh. Did you see the new, the Gallup new State of the Global Workplace report?
I did. I'm still digging through it.
Oh my gosh, me too. But where was some of that on the joy, the just not thriving, not engaged, just full of stress. I mean, daily worry 40%. What?
Yeah.
No surprise there. Daily stress 44%. Daily anger 21%.
Anger, that was a sort of a frightening one.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Is that it's gotten to that point that people experience this daily anger. What do you do?
And 21%, I mean, globally, that's
a lot.
It is a lot when you think about that. If you look around your boardroom table or in your team meeting, and 21% of those people are feeling that way. Sadness, 23%. You mentioned sadness, 23%. That's huge.
It's so sad to me. It's a sort of a sad state of affairs. And now I feel like with the economic and financial situation that we're in, I mean, it's not going to get better. Like those outside forces are even pressing even more. A lot of the people I'm talking to, sort of the frontline workers, as well as those middle managers, they are so overwhelmed, so understaffed.
Yeah.
And
a big deal.
They are not thriving. The statements that they make are out of desperation and sheer like giving up. I acquiesce, like they're crying uncle all the time, and it's really something. You bring up a really good point about that. Yeah, that 40 stress among the world's workers reached 44%.
Crazy.
All-time high.
We are stressed out. We are stressed out in many different ways, and bringing that into the workplace. We talk about wanting to bring our authentic self, and if we're bringing our authentic self as a stressed, worried, angry, sad individual into the workplace, how can we as coaches then, help these organizations by, helping in that regard, and partnering with these individuals, with these leaders, to help them perhaps have a mindset shift.
That's a great point. I think there's a lot of, I think more than ever, people need somebody to talk to, right? And it's not just talking to, but somebody who's going to help them figure it out. Not that a coach tells them what to do, although they ask for it all the time, right?
Yeah, just tell
me, right? Although that's totally the wrong totally the wrong thing. Because a coach doesn't tell, they are really there to prompt people to find their own answers, right? And they do ask. But even the small things that, maybe that they're working on, that if there's just one moment where they feel in control and they are taking a step forward, I mean, that's really powerful.
It's very powerful.
I remember my daughter was when she was in grad school was diagnosed with cancer. Horrible time for the family, right? Yeah. On one of the many trips to the infusion suite, she'd go back and have her testing done, and her nurse, she had the same oncology nurse, amazing woman, just this beautiful angel of God. I tell you, she came out while my daughter was in the back getting her testing done to see if she could have chemo that day, and the nurse said to me, she came out to the waiting room, put her arm around me, sat down next to me, and she said, "Mom, how are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, that's so great." But I said to her, "How do you do this? How do you do it every day, knowing that you might not see this person again, or they might not have very..."
I'm getting teary-eyed.
Sorry. But here's what she said, and I think this was brilliant, and it was so amazing. She said, "Because I am so blessed, if I can make one moment better on this journey that God's created for this person, I'm the luckiest person in the world." And that's how she approached every single interaction. And I think the same for coaches. So from a coaching standpoint, so this is my long way around back to what you were talking about, but from a coaching standpoint, that's what coaches need to focus on. This one moment in time, this one interaction. And employers need to understand too, that's what their workers need, to recalibrate when they're in this, oh my gosh, the way they're in this Atlas stance with the weight of the world on their shoulder and being so overwhelmed. This pause, this one space in this moment to stop and figure out, how do I, very positively take one step forward. So what's one thing I can do today to feel better about everything? Like, that has a significant impact.
Powerful. That's really powerful. And here's the flip side of that. So we know, as coaches, we know the power in that. And it's sometimes about even coaching somebody into a coaching session, because many times, they're so busy. Leaders are busy leaders. And at times it can be very difficult for them to hit the pause button and no, but once they are in the session, like, it's, the greatest thing ever. But it's getting leaders to be able to even hold themselves accountable to stepping in to a session.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing. Again, you have 1,000 things pulling you in different directions. And I think it's, you bring up a good point, Kelly, because I think it's just this mindset about what is most important, right? And maybe it's back to that oxygen mask thing, right? You got to take care of yourself, because if you're stressed and overwhelmed, how do your employees feel? Like, they feel that too. It's no different than parents and kids, right? They sense that, or infants, and if the mom's all tense, the baby's crying, I mean, it's all, people feed off of one another. So I think that that's maybe a good thing for these leaders to keep in mind, is that, one, you lead by example. And if you say this is important, your sense of well-being will show it. What are you doing for yourself too,
Yeah, for sure. That leading by example is huge. It is huge. And the well-being piece. And we know, again, research on that is saying that we need to have, healthy individuals stepping into the workplace. That's how they are going to be engaged. And just, the data alone that came out this week, as I was reading through, I was like, oh my goodness. And even, yesterday I was with a team. And one of the things that we talked about was scheduling and reflection time. So even, aside from, in coaching, it's all about, creating awareness, gaining insight and whatnot, even scheduling in times of self-reflection for leaders. I know for me, if it's not scheduled in my calendar, it doesn't happen. It's like I live by my calendar.
It's so true, that time blocking, and that, that's what's important. You have to choose. It's a choice. You have to choose and block it and guard it with your life. Oh, yeah. Nothing can be more important than you, and that's where I think a lot of people are acquiesce. Well, I'm not as important as somebody who's asking me for something, especially in a leadership role, right? Because I'm here to serve, but you can't serve if you're not at your best, really, and you're preoccupied. So you've got to have some time. That's such a great point. I wrote something not too long ago that's sort of it's been my latest soapbox. I'm so tired of the work-life balance words. I just don't want to hear them anymore.
Is there balance?
Well, because it assumes like work is the priority and I'm fitting my life into it. And that's such a wrong assumption. Yeah. We should just say, I just need balance for my life, period. Right? Work is only a singular element of the whole. It isn't more. Some days it might be more important. Other days it might not be. It's a changing thing, right? Based on where you choose to place your priorities. So I think if that mindset for leaders too, remember, this is only an element of somebody's total well-being.
Yeah. And again, choices, like you said, what we know is 81,000 hours we spend working. And that's only on, I think it's like a 40-hour work week, 41-hour work week.
And who does that?
And who does that is right. And so it's more than that. And when you think about if you're spending that over your lifetime, is that what we want?
Right. It could be if that gives you a great sense of purpose and that's really what you feel your contribution is, but it wouldn't be every day, all days for every year of your life in exactly the same manner, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there's been times where I have felt in the past that there's a trade-off, right? It's either, you work, you're trying to make a gain of some sort, whether it's, a financial gain or whether it's a personal gain, and something's always got to give. There always has to be something that you're trading. And I think that it's really important to find out, what are we trading and does it make sense? And that could be for a season, right? A season of trade.
Yeah.
And what that looks like.
I love that, just as it should be just be a question every time like a personal in your mind question every time you decide to take something on. What am I giving up?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that in my past, I used to be a yes person. I was always yes, 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 yes. And I had to learn that the word no is an important word. And, what am I giving myself to with those yeses? And every no is another yes to me. And if I need those in those seasons, then the word no is going to come out of my mouth. Right. And maybe no, thank you. No, I'm not able to, but it's hard and it's even, a coachable moment for people to be able to understand, how can we verbalize the word no without having the recipient feel as though we are, just saying absolutely not. And it doesn't mean that we always have to explain our no's, because I've also learned that we don't always have to explain that, but we do need to verbalize instead of, saying yes and then falling short, not being able to, rise into that. There can be a whole lot of emotions around that if somebody wants to, but isn't able to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I was just thinking as you're talking about that, like, what are some of these good reflection questions that you can do to keep yourself out of that? And then think about all the people I coach whose responsibility is so high that they're always like, yep, I was taught
responsibility.
People with high end responsibility talents, their motto is I can and I will. So like, so that's why they have that inclination always to say yes, right? But yeah, some good questions like, so what are some good questions people can ask themselves? Because people feel like sometimes pressured to say yes, or that they need to say yes, right?
Yeah. Well, can this be delegated? And that's something that we talked about yesterday in a session. It's, leaders aren't always the greatest delegators. And so is delegating this, if we talk about maybe somebody comes to me and says, can you do this? I may not be able to do it, but I can find somebody perhaps that can take care of that and who could probably even do it better than me, depending.
Yeah.
And so will this give me more time if I delegate?
Yeah.
So I think we have to have that mindset too. And then who are we going to delegate it to? Are they able to, is it somebody who's internal? Is it somebody who's external? If it is somebody who's internal, have they been trained to do, right? Something that we're going to delegate them.
Yeah. I love that because it's so true. I feel like there's just 3 questions, simple questions, right? And you hit on it perfectly. So one is, does this even have to be done? Like sometimes, like, that's like first. Well, are we sure it really needs to happen? I don't know. Does this need to be done? The second one is, does it need to be done by me? That's your delegation. Why am I like,
right?
Have to be done by me? Could it be done by? And then the third is, does it have to be done by me now?
No, that's right.
So, I feel like those are sort of the things to sort of weed some of those things out, maybe. Because sometimes you're going to say, yeah, I do need to do that, but maybe I don't have to do it if the urgency isn't there,
On a scale of 1 to 10, what is the urgency, right?
Yeah, but that's right. Sometimes we think everything is urgent, right? But of course, if everything's urgent, nothing really is. So it sort of evens everything out. Yeah, I think so. That's being honest about that. I like that, Kelly, actually, is really be honest about how important and how urgent is it,
Yeah.
Go back to the Eisenhower model, with the matrix of, urgent and important. I mean, and sometimes that helps you lay that out.
Yeah. And I think that, that also is in the eye of the beholder, who's holding it. Right. And what that means to the person. And sometimes, that would take even coaching for a leader to understand, is it important? If they really are holding it tightly, that they feel it's important, it could matter in a big way, but is that truth? Yeah.
I think it's just being more critical and discerning before just jumping in with 2 feet, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, really interesting things coming out in that state of the workplace. And, there's lots of things employers are doing. I think they're trying really hard with lots of stuff and experimenting,
And there's nothing wrong with experimenting. That's how innovation happens.
Yeah. What's fun is I think what works best though is to tell people you're experimenting. Tell your employees, well, let's try. We're going to try this. Give us honest feedback. Because if it doesn't work, let's figure out what does. And just being that transparency, I think, is really important. We don't have all, we don't know.
Yeah. One of my mentors always said, do something for 90 days. Let it be an experiment. Reassess after 90 days. See what you think. See if, if it's a go, if it's we need to tweak a few things. If it's an absolute no, this is a fail, and just fail forward.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm sort of laughing and smiling because you just said 90 days. And I said, oh, that's 3 months. And I feel like, okay, 3 months is a good try. When my kids were little and they were, toddlers and trying food, and even, I used to tell them 3 bites was a good try. That's sort of
Things come in
that.
threes.
That's right. So 3 months is a good try. Let's go for it. Yeah.
And then do it for another 3 months.
Yeah,
You know,
I like
if
that.
you need to. So
Yeah.
because I think that 3-month period is doable.
Yeah.
And you're going to get something out of that if you are really intentional with that 3-month block of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Life is interesting. Life and leadership is interesting.
It is. And it because it's an ever moving target, right?
Mm-hmm.
One moment it's great. The next moment, I have nowhere to turn. I don't know what to do next, Yeah. I think one of the things, kind of going percentage of people that are not thriving, that is pretty significant. 40% of people are not thriving. If I'm just looking at the US, right? That's a big number.
That's scary. That's a sad, we'll go back to that sad. It is sad. It's scary and sad at the same time that people are not thriving. And,
well, and then
what does it mean to somebody to thrive?
Right. So I think, in the studies that they're, looking at, it's that ladder, right, on a scale of 1 to 10, and not thriving is what, under, if you scored like 7 or below or something like that.
People are stuck.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it. They're stuck, or they feel stuck. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're worried. They're stuck in this sort of cycle of fear, of the next thing.
And that can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be thriving. They wouldn't feel like they were thriving.
Yeah. 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 It's a really interesting state of things. So the opportunity, though, is that I think there's a lot of things that can be done to address it, right? Mm-hmm. I think being cognizant of it is essential. Because if we sort of just cover our eyes and say,
oh yeah,
everything will go back to normal. Well,
it's not.
There is no back to normal.
No,
this is the box
every day. That's right.
This is the box, Kelly. This is our new box.
This is our new box, right. And we need to figure out how to operate within that box. Yeah. And continue to innovate, because this has left a lot of innovation. What has happened over time that has brought us to here. Doing and thinking things differently, thinking out of the box, listening more to the employees in the workplace about their needs. Yeah. And trying to help them help you, right? Because as leaders, we need our employees. Our organizations can't work without our employees.
Yeah, right. No, that's right.
How can
they're the ones doing all the real things for our customers, or and providing all the services, providing all the products, making all the widgets. They're the ones performing whatever the business is in the business to do. And if we don't take care of them, we don't have a business. You're right.
And revisiting our, what do our strategic plans look like, and do they need to be changed for new strategies based on the new box and what we are experiencing in the workplace? Because that's a different lens. Those are different conversations that people are having now.
Yeah,
it's not business as usual, as much as I think many leaders want it to be. It can't be.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, wishing does not make it so.
That's right. Wishing does not make it so.
And I think, just accepting the fact that we can't, there's no going backwards. There's learning and taking knowledge and lessons from the past is important. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. But it won't ever be exactly like that again. And we don't have a clear end to some of the elements that are perpetuating and have exacerbated this, like we talked about, and are perpetuating. So you take the pandemic and the public emergency, which changed and stopped everybody in their tracks. Well, that was supposed to end in April. That got kicked to July 15th. They are now talking them up, pushing it again to next April, the public emergency, which changes how everybody does things. Even though most people are sort of back to their lives, they're talking about extending that. That also creates, a lot of different rules, a lot of different changes in how important working is, whether I need to work or not. All those things, and that will have an effect on the workforce moving forward into next year.
And like you said, the economy alone, things that are happening, no wonder people are sad, angry, worried.
Right. The hope isn't there.
Exactly. And I think that's part of our role as coaches, is to help bring hope.
Yeah.
To see the glimmers of hope. To know that this is a season, this isn't forever.
Right. And I had a recent coaching call where we were talking about, okay, well, you're inundated right now, but what are you doing to prepare for what will be really cool on the other side? Like, where do you want to spend your time? What are you working towards so you're ready when that moment is here and you can just jump in with 2 feet, and I think that's a great thing. You're right. Be a little bit more forward looking and say, maybe I can't see it right now, but what could it look like? What is great? What would bring me joy, and what am I here to do? And figure out, while I still have to take care of all this busyness right now, is there something I can do? And maybe it's just pausing, like you said, finding that time where I just have this space to sort of be, and not be obligated, and not be inundated, and just take time to sort of just regroup, or start to think of something that is for a future moment, and start to think or prepare for that.
But what I found is that, you and I are both Gallup certified, so we love strengths, and not everybody is futuristic and really has the eye. I'll just use the eye, even to helicopter up and be able to look down, or look, out. And so I think that can be really difficult for leaders. So we can have our reflection time, we can do the pause, and we can think about what's going on or what's happened, but how can we help leaders see the future, even themselves, being able to paint themselves in to that future that they desire. And it does take a conversation like this. It does take the coaching, sitting in a room with a coach, whether it's Zoom or, in person, and really being able to explore that, and for the coach to extract that out of somebody who typically isn't thinking like that. Now, senior leaders, their role is to be the visionary. And we hope that our, senior leaders, are, casting those visions, far and wide. But I think for the typical person, it can be very difficult.
Yeah, especially if they're mired in the muck of today and what is. Yeah. It's really hard to see past that. I'm so busy, I can't even possibly think about that, right? It's the, gone with the wind. I can't think about that today. I'll think about it tomorrow, kind of mindset, because it's today is just too overwhelming, So leaders have to be able to help paint that picture and articulate it and talk about it and get people thinking and working on it, even in the midst of some of this other stuff, and create that space. I love that idea. But you're right, it's about extracting it and sitting in a room to help pull out from somebody, what does great look like? What does better look like? What's ideal, Yeah. And then, so how do you start to travel toward that, Yeah. But yeah, it's a series of conversations. It just isn't like somebody says, hey, just think about the future. Okay.
Okay.
And it magically happens and you're like, everything's great now. But you're right, especially if you don't have that, it's not your natural inclination to think big picture or to think down the road, that you're a really good in the moment person, because that's where your talents are. And that's what makes you great. That'll be a lot harder and really does require somebody else to sort of that partnering up to help you unleash some of those things that don't come very readily in seeing those opportunities. Yeah, totally agree.
Well, Annette, this has just been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you, and I appreciate, everything that you do, and you're an amazing coach. So I have enjoyed our conversation immensely today. Yeah, and I know that we're going to be having some more of these coming up in the future, so I look forward to that. And,
awesome.
Yeah, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you. Bye.
If you like what you hear, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite listening platform. And check out my book, Leadership Excellence by Design, Strategies for Sustainability and Strength, available on Amazon.